Hey, what's up, everybody? We have a new YouTube channel. Make sure you subscribe right now. Leave a comment on the video. Share it with your friends. It's also a podcast, 3 and Out, wherever you listen with me, John Middlekauff, Apple, Spotify. We have you covered, as well as thevolume.com. We have merch. Check out. I got 3 and Out hats right now. Thevolume.com. Search the podcast. Buy some merch. Well, we have a lot of quarterback news to get into, but the headliner about probably less than 30 minutes ago, Justin Fields traded from the Bears to the Pittsburgh Steelers. And for a long time, people were like, oh, they're going to get a second or third round pick. The moment Mac Jones went for a 6th round pick, they have the same contract. Neither guy's going to get their 5th-year option picked up. They are on a 1-year deal. That was his comp. It really was, especially when you looked around the landscape and not many people were that interested in him. That was pretty clear. We saw the Vikings, Darnold, the Raiders, Minshew, even Seattle traded for Sam Howell, who went for more than Justin Fields by a lot. And the reason that is all because of the contracts. Justin Fields is on a 1-year deal. Now, for the Pittsburgh Steelers, they could not roll back with Kenny Pickett and Mason Rudolph. That was never an option this offseason. Now, neither guy is on the team. I think Mason's in Tennessee, and obviously Pickett is now with the Eagles. So to get Russell Wilson, who, let's face it, the stats last year didn't look terrible, but the eye test, it's not the same. And they're hoping to catch lightning in a bottle. They only gave him $1.5 million. To me, the flyer on Justin Fields is an easy one to make if you're them. One, he kind of plays like Russell Wilson in the sense of one read, run around, but unlike Russell, his speed is elite. And I loved him coming out in the draft. Clearly, the guy you've seen the last couple of years has really struggled within the pocket to play in rhythm, and it's hard to play like that in the NFL. I also think his draft is pretty representative of what most drafts are. They're complete disasters when it comes to quarterbacks. Think about this. Trevor Lawrence is not getting extended this year, and he by far is the best of his group. Zach Wilson will not be on the Jets. Trey Lance already on the Cowboys. Justin Fields now on the Steelers. Mac Jones on the Jags. So 4 of the 5 quarterbacks, Zach's technically not on a team yet, but Joe Douglas has already said at the combine, like, hey, he's open for a trade. The problem is no one's trading for him. They'll probably cut him. And you see these guys just moving teams left and right. Now, the one thing with Fields, like Mac Jones just isn't very good. He's a backup. Zach Wilson, train wreck. Trey Lance, I don't think is very good at all. Fields does have some playmaking ability in terms of scrambling around. He's got a big arm, and his speed is elite. So if I was the Steelers, I would have been all over this move. But I'm not overpaying for it when I already knew what his comp is. And it was the Mac Jones, because this is all based on contracts. The reason Sam Howell gets traded to Seattle, one, John Schneider really liked him coming out in the draft. Like, that has to matter, right? Some of these GMs value certain players, young players, when they're available on their rookie contract. Why? Because I had a high draft grade on that guy. Why? We were very interested in drafting him. Like, I don't think the Pittsburgh Steelers were super enamored with Justin Fields coming out in the draft. But a couple years later, they find themselves in a situation where they got Russell Wilson. They're hoping to resurrect his career. And they get this young player on a 1-year contract that, Russell could get injured. He has before. And if he does, Arthur Smith, the running game, will just try to make some shit happen. But they're basically taking a big swing here with the Russell Wilson and Justin Fields quarterback duo, because I would say probably won't work, but I completely understand why they did it. And I would have done it too if I were them. So are they better? Because what they've been is like a 9-10-ish win team, a team that's immediately out in the playoffs, not winning any playoff games, haven't won one since 2016. I don't view them as any different than they've been. They are now much more interesting. I'm much more inclined to watch them now that he's playing, Russell or Justin Fields, than if Kenny Pickett or Mason Rudolph was playing. and their ceiling is definitely higher. But you could also say this could be a disaster. But I just don't see their other options. They didn't have any. So I commend the Steelers. This is an organization that tends to be just pretty mellow when it comes to quarterback. Now, granted, they've had Roethlisberger forever, but they took what they thought was just going to be a double in Kenny Pickett. I said this about Mac Jones and Kenny Pickett. And there's nothing wrong with being a backup. A lot of guys make millions of dollars playing for well over a decade, holding, quote unquote, the clipboard. You don't really hold it anymore. Maybe it's an iPad now. And being the running mate for a starting quarterback. It's a really good living. And I've been watching football professionally now for almost 15 years. And those guys' skill sets transfer into backup roles. And that's what they're both in. Mac Jones, Kenny Pickett are backup. Justin Fields' skill set is what you desire. As a scouting staff, as a coaching staff, now there's more to playing quarterback than just a skill set, running around, a big arm, accuracy, rhythm, ability to play in the pocket, ability to understand pressure. And that's clearly stuff that Justin Fields has struggled with. Same with Russell Wilson in recent memory. Now, the one thing is Arthur Smith, when he became the offensive coordinator with the Tennessee Titans, Ryan Tannehill was not viewed very highly around the league. And he resurrected his career. Now, his skill set is different than definitely Justin Fields. Fields has a much stronger arm and is just a much faster runner, though Tannehill is a good athlete. But he built a good offense around them. Now, it was heavily predicated on Derrick Henry, but I find the Steelers now something that I did not before. They're interesting. And before, they were boring, and their ceiling was just not that high. And I'm someone who I thought Kenny Pickett going into last year, I kind of bought the hype. I picked him to win the division, and I immediately regretted it. But if you're a Steeler fan, like, at least there's some hope now of a higher ceiling. I wouldn't go, buy a hotel room and plane tickets to New Orleans for next year's Super Bowl, but I am much more excited to what could be. And maybe Arthur Smith resurrects his career. Russell gets banged up. Fields comes in, and he makes him look a lot better. Like, that would be what I was hoping for as a Steeler fan. I would actually be more intrigued to fuck with Fields on the field than Russell Wilson. Though Russell today, if I had to win a game, you're probably better off. But over, like, if he got 8 starts by the second half of the season in his offense, could they do more with it? I would be much more intrigued by that. But crazy move. I'll give the Steelers credit on this. They admitted, and I know there were stories like Kenny Pickett was thought that he could have a chance to compete, and it was clear that Russell Wilson, like, Kenny, who do you think you are? I'm not saying you're not a bad guy or anything, but, like, what position are you in to act anything beside you'll do what Mike Tomlin tells you to do? And clearly, they didn't like everything that transpired. And Mike Tomlin, the Steelers organization, the Rooney family were like, see ya. And the Eagles, what's weird is I'm not a big Kenny Pickett fan, but if I can get a backup quarterback like the Eagles did, 2 years, $7 million. Like, he's a good backup quarterback. I'll take Kenny Pickett as my backup quarterback all day long if I have a starting quarterback like the Eagles and Jalen Hurts. Now, there's a lot of pressure on Jalen Hurts, but that has nothing to do with Kenny Pickett. That's just a solid backup quarterback. I'd say the same thing about Mac Jones. Cheap backup quarterback. Like, there's nothing wrong with that. Same thing with Justin Fields. Now, the difference is Mac Jones has proven years ago his rookie season that he could just manage an offense, right? I think Kenny Pickett is in that vein. Game manager, completions, accuracy, not much else, and play within yourself. The thing with Justin Fields is you want him to play, like, playing within himself is like making shit happen. Can you harness that? Can you get him a little bit better within the pocket? There's a lot more to work with in that player. Now, some coaches, the reason Kyle Shanahan, the 49ers, didn't like Justin Fields coming out because they didn't think he saw the field. And that has kind of bore itself out in his career. Now, can that ever be changed? A lot of people would say no. But for a 6th-round pick, 1-year contract, maybe there is something there to work with. And maybe we strike some oil. Not that he becomes some star player, but he can just be somewhat interesting. Because before, we had nothing. Like we had a fringe starter backup type guy in Kenny Pickett in a conference with a bunch of high-end guys. And the Eagles, like, that's good business. Wait, I just have to give you a 22 pick switch. So you take my third, right? Or excuse me, I'm confused now. So, oh yeah, okay. The Eagles got Kenny Pickett and pick 120. The Steelers got pick 98, which is a third. So they moved up 22 spots and 2 sevenths, which most seventh round picks are not Brock Purdy. It's hard to keep track of everything. There is just a lot of pick swaps, a lot of trades. The quarterback market, the last 36 hours, is freaking bananas. But this happens a lot in the draft, right? If it happened last year in the draft with the wide receivers, Addison, Zay Flowers, the dude on the Chargers. Like, once one goes, some of these other teams that were interested, I even saw John Snyder, read some of his quotes about Sam Howell. He's like, we were kind of getting nervous because there were a lot of teams sniffing around. And you go, well, I'd rather have Justin Fields than Sam Howell. Let's just say you would say that. This isn't just fantasy football. You have to factor in the contract. Sam Howell was a mid-round pick, and he has 2 years left on his deal. That's very, very valuable. Sam Howell, I looked right before I hopped on, I think makes like $900,000 this year, like $1 million next year. So basically, John Schneider, who got Howell and a 4th-round pick, did something very similar to the Eagles, gave up his 3rd-round pick. So the pick swap was about 24 spots. He had 102. He gave it for 78 and a 5th-round pick. But that contract is very valuable. So when we talk about these players, they're not just in a vacuum. It's why Trey Lance, even Jerry, you could argue, overpaid a little bit, but he got 2 years of Trey Lance. He got last year, and then he gets this upcoming year. If you traded for him like the Jags did, Mac Jones or Justin Fields, you only get the 1 season before he becomes a free agent. You obviously have a little time to pick up your 5th-year option. They're not going to do that. But this has been kind of a crazy domino effect of all these guys. And it was just kind of a waiting game because none of these guys, there's not a waiting game on elite players that are going for a lot, right? But when you're talking 4th-round pick swaps and 6th-round picks, you got to be patient. And most of these GMs, they didn't rush to do this, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, had conversations, let it play out a little bit. Let's canvass the market, and then let's pull the trigger. And clearly the moment Pickett kind of made a stink about being pissed off, if you're the Steelers, like, what are we talking about? Of all the guys, it's one thing if like TJ Watt busts in the room or Minka or Cam Hayward and they got some questions, they got some issues, but Kenny Pickett, like, I mean, we're really having this conversation. Pick up the phone and say, hey, the guy's on the trade block. And there would be some teams immediately interested, teams with starting quarterbacks, because his value as a backup. And now you got Justin Fields on the Steelers, Kenny Pickett on the Eagles, and Sam Howell on the Seattle Seahawks. Just like that. And to me, like I said, the Steelers are a fascinating watch. I thought it was time for Mike Tomlin to go to another team. Obviously, the Rooneys didn't agree with me. I don't think Mike Tomlin sucks. I just think change is good. We saw it happen to Andy Reid. Left Philadelphia, went to Kansas City. The rest is history. Sometimes it can be very refreshing for a really good coach. And I think Mike Tomlin's a really good coach. We could argue, and a lot of people like he's overrated. If Mike Tomlin would have been on the open market, teams would have been lined up to hire him. Hell, the Browns made Vrabel a consultant yesterday. Why do you think that is? Which is crazy because Stefanski's won the coach of the year twice in 4 years, but everyone's like, God, are they, if this year doesn't go well, do they just put Vrabel in? And yeah, man, I think the value was kind of established. Some of these pick swaps all have to do because a lot of these, everyone that talks about football is going to be like, how did this guy go for more than this guy? You have to factor in the contract. Keenan Allen went for a 4th-round pick. Why? Because he makes a lot of money. Eric Armstead, they couldn't trade him. Why? He made $18 million. It's much easier to just let a team cut a guy and then sign him to your own contract. Or a team like the Chicago Bears who valued Keenan Allen makes a lot of money. It's only 1 year of a contract. Like, hey, it's very, very important for us to figure this out. And obviously, I haven't even hit on the elephant in the room. is this opens the door, like the conversation's kind of over. We don't even need to pretend. Like, could they just build around? No, they were never going to build around Justin Fields. It was determined in the middle of last season. Running around and making some big plays and losses, no one cares. That game against the Green Bay Packers to end the season was pretty eye-opening experience. I watched every snap of that game, just like a lot of you did. And it was like one guy, it wasn't even a question what quarterback you'd rather have. And if the nail wasn't in the coffin, the nail ended in the coffin after that game for his career with the Bears. Because of the trade Ryan Poles made to put them in position to get the number 1 overall pick. And now they have the opportunity to take Caleb Williams, who I guess maybe there's a sliver. Some people put this out there. Could they take Jaden Daniels? I think it's 99.999% they're taking Caleb Williams. Some could argue it's 100%. And now you got Caleb Williams, you got Keenan Allen, you got DJ Moore, you got a solid tight end, you got some defensive pieces. There's going to be a lot of hype for the Bears. Can they win 10 games and compete for a wild card spot? I think that's fair to have that expectation if you're a fan. I'm not saying it's going to happen. We'll see how the draft plays out and kind of see all the rosters. But clearly the Detroit Lions are going to be really good. Myself, like many, think the Packers are not going away. So it's not like it's going to be easy. Even if Minnesota ends up sucking and they made a trade, they trade up and they get J.J. McCarthy and they win 6-7 games, whatever, they're not factor. When you have two teams in your division that I would say most pundits, most people, if you polled around the NFL, most fans, like the Detroit Lions, you'd be on fucking crack if you didn't say right now they're a double-digit win team, right? They just easily could have beat the Niners in the NFC Championship game. They were one of the best teams, if not the second best team in the NFC, the majority of the season. And the Packers, that second half, now having a strong second half, hot second half, there's going to be pressure on Love, but that roster is really good. We know LaFleur's good. We know he can call an offense. Question with them is going to be defense. And to me, the question with the Bears, one, listen, Caleb, for as talented as he is, he's still going to be a rookie. It's still playing in the NFL is difficult. It's not playing Washington State and Arizona State. Like, it is very hard. But if he's just solid, the pressure is going to be on the coach. And this is a coach, defensive guy, has no history of success in his short stint as a head coach. And let's face it, the elephant in the room, if it started slow, like, would he get fired? So I think the Bears, Steelers got a lot more interesting. The Bears, they've already been interesting. Now it's like, we don't even need to pretend anymore. I haven't been pretending. I don't know if you've been pretending. Maybe people have been pretending. One, that Fields was going to go for a high draft pick, and two, that he had any chance of sticking around. And Howie just doing business moves, right? He's just getting a guy who's cheap for 2 more years. And John Schneider does what he always does. Why'd he want Drew Lock included in the trade? Because he had a high draft grade on him. He liked him. Why do you think he just traded for Sam Howell? He had a high draft pick on him. He liked him. John Schneider's, an old school scout. When he likes you coming out and you're still a relatively young player and he has the opportunity to get you, he will get you. So fun. What a wild quarterback. We're talking backups here, but what an interesting little stretch for the National Football League.